Hello everyone, it's Diamond Legend here, and this week we're just going to be talking about what I thought about the first 21 chapters of One Piece, which is the beginning of the arc all the way to the end of the Bucky the Clown arc. And with me, I wanted to bring in someone who knows a lot about One Piece, which is Shonen Ouji.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about One Piece. I don't know if I could say I know a lot about One Piece. I'm certainly not a teching, but I'm going to do my best.
This is something that I kind of wanted to talk about for a while, because the reason why I brought OG here specifically is because he's the one that kind of convinced me to look into the manga of One Piece. And at first I kind of hesitated, had some doubts, because I didn't think it was going to be all that interesting. But after reading it, at least from the first few chapters before I got to the very end of the first arc, I thought it was really good. There's been some points in my community tab, as well as Twitter, where I would talk about each chapter, what I thought about it. And we're gonna try our best to kind of break it down a little bit, but not too long. That way we can try to keep this video kind of short. So the first thing I want to bring up is there was, if I can remember, we're gonna try to start it off as far back as we can, which was Luffy's backstory when he was with Shanks. I thought the whole thing with how he wanted to be a pirate, but then everyone was kind of like, oh, you're not old enough and you're too immature, and Luffy, cutting his face to try to prove a point. I thought that was really good, how he's really determined to prove to everyone that he can do this. And it just so happens that one of the bandits shows up and Shanks gets embarrassed in front of everybody, and Luffy's disappointed in him, saying a real man wouldn't do that. So we really see that at a young age, that Luffy has a lot of courage. What did you think about, I guess, the beginning of the whole backstory with Luffy and Shanks?
Well, I talked about this a lot in a video I did. Romance Dawn, that first chapter, is, in retrospect, probably the best first chapter I've read out of the big Shonen Jump series, only because it does such a good job of setting the framework for the story. Because in the anime, it's weird. In the anime, they don't do it in the very first episode. They save it for a flashback episode, which is weird because, like I just said, it's the perfect launching point for the story. You bring up when Shanks got bullied, harassed by the bandit, and it's cool to see Shanks like that, because you wouldn't think that a pirate would just take that. You would be in Luffy's position. You would think, hey, this guy's making fun of me, he's making me look like a joke, why don't I give it back to him? But you see that Shanks isn't a guy who likes to get into needless fights. He's only the kind of person who fights when he wants to defend his friends. What did you think?
Yeah, I really thought that was interesting for his character, because like you said as well earlier, you would expect him to kind of just jump out and, have a huge fight, but as soon as Luffy gets in trouble, then that's when he springs into action, even going as far as to risk an arm just to save Luffy.
Now, what do you think about Shanks losing his arm? Because I won't say anything to spoil, but a lot of people, either when they first see that or in retrospect when they get a better understanding of how strong he is, did you think it was stupid that Shanks lost his arm? Do you think that he could have just beat the monster?
From what I've seen, like you said, without spoiling it, from what I've seen, it didn't look like he had much of a choice. I think it was either save Luffy or risk his own arm. I think that's what I kind of saw it as. I could be wrong, but I think from what I've seen, I think that was the only option. And leading up to it, we cut back to the present day, and we get introduced to the Iron Mace Lady, which was with Koby, and how Luffy was in the barrel because he couldn't swim after eating the fruit. Which the fruit itself is really interesting, how it grants people different powers for specific abilities. This part right here, where we're introduced to Koby, I think he's a great character, even though he's not a fighter and he's not really doing too much. Just how the fact that he wants to break free from his old, from his basically his lifestyle, and wants to change that for the better. I thought that was really interesting, and that could probably hit home for a lot of other people.
It's interesting you say that because I have a friend who is just starting the anime, and he hates Koby. He thinks he is super annoying.
Oh wow.
Which I can understand, but I mean, Kobe's just so wholesome. He's just such a good boy. He just wants to, be a Marine, go save people, beat bad pirates. How could you hate him?
Yeah, I do get that. He does come off a bit annoying, but the fact that he wants to change his life around, it kind of makes me feel like, oh, this is someone that could probably be relatable to some people out there. How it kind of brings back as to how it's like he wants freedom in a sense.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Did you, or at least in those first 20 chapters, do you see the like cover story of Koby?
I think I did.
What did you think of what you saw?
I thought it was good. I think Koby as a whole, just everything. I guess his whole character, from from the beginning up to where I've seen now, everything that I've seen and known about him currently, I think it's all laid out perfectly well for him.
Okay. On that same note, what do you think about the use of those cover stories? Because you don't really get that in the anime. Like, that's one advantage to reading the manga, is you get to read those cover stories. Like, maybe if you're lucky, the really, really important ones might, like, early on, some of them are kind of adapted into filler episodes, but for the most part, none of those cover stories ever make it to the anime. Like, they maybe get mentioned, but that's it.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think too of what happened later on. I do believe that we get to the Zoro parts as well after they end up leaving, like, the ship.
Yes.
And in that part, we see we're introduced to Zoro, which he's one of my favorite characters currently in the whole show as of right now. I could be wrong. There may be some even better characters than Zoro, but as of right now, he's a fan favorite right now.
Well, Zoro is widely seen as, like, even if you hate him, he's like the coolest, like the cool in the traditional sense of he just plays by his own rules. Although the community is kind of split. Like, everyone basically likes these two characters to some extent, but the community is split between Zoro and then a character that I'm sure you've seen, but I don't think you've gotten to yet in the manga. His name is Sanji.
Yes.
So it might be the case that you meet Sanji and you decide you like Sanji better, but in terms of that rivalry, for lack of better terms, I'm a Zoro fan all day. He is just too cool for school. He's just the bee's knees. He's just everything you could want in a character.
Honestly, and when we see that he's when he's tied up, he begins saying, I'm choosing to do this so I can last the whole month, because we find out later on that he's doing this to save the little girl that was going to, I guess, get executed, I think. And he's doing that.
Or no, she was. I don't think she was gonna get executed. She was in trouble because I think she said something to Helmeppo, the Morgan's son, but I don't think they were actually gonna execute her.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Maybe he was trying to on the spot, but
okay.
That's why.
And I like that he decides to, say, hey, I don't know these people, but if it means they'll be safe, I'll do something about it. And come to find out later on that it was all a lie and that they planned to kill him. And so Luffy, hearing this, he charges in and deals with Helmeppo and Morgan, and there's like a huge battle. We see that they untie Zoro, and this is where the cool part comes in, when all of the Marine soldiers come in and Zoro, does his three sword style and stops all of them by himself.
Yeah, Zoro's just way too cool. His attacks are cool. His fights are always the best. He has the coolest fights. Now, I saw something, I think this was just a fan theory, but one of his attacks, his like most basic attack, when he uses, I think he uses all three swords for it, but it's called the Onigiri. Now, the literal translation is demon slayer or demon slice, but onigiri is also like the rice food. So maybe some fans think that he named that attack after the girl for giving her the rice treat. I don't think so though, because I want to say that he named it before he met her, but I liked that idea because it was really, you would think Zoro is like this like badass, but then you see him have this like tender moment where he like appreciates the food that the girl made for him.
Yeah, and once they've dealt with all the issues, they decide, it's best for Koby to be here, and they do a moment where the Marine soldiers are like, "Oh, are you guys together?" And he says, Luffy's like, "Oh yeah, we are together," in a way to try to get them to fight, so that way they could believe that Koby is actually by himself by himself and not actually with these group of pirates. Which I thought that was cool to see that Luffy's willing to go as far as to have like an actual fight just so that Koby can have his dream.
Yeah, and that's a reoccurring theme in One Piece is even though they're pirates, like they're clearly good guys, Luffy and Zoro, but because they're pirates and the other guys are Marines, like they can't just like get along. They have to like play this game of like Marines versus pirates. So that's not the first time, or that's not the only time you'll see that.
And then, if I can remember, then the next scene, from what we've gone into, which I don't think I've mentioned this earlier, but I did mention this earlier, that we're just basing this all off in the manga, because like Ouji said before, there's certain things that's left out in the anime as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that happens, they decide to go set sail again, and Luffy finds the bird, he jumps up to get it, and the bird, grabs him by his head. Zoro tries to chase him down, and that's when we're introduced to some of Buggy the Clown's pirate crew.
What did you think about Buggy's crew?
I thought they were really funny at first, how they kind of just showed up just in the middle of the water, and then Zoro saves them and like, oh yeah, we tricked you. But then after a while they pay respects to Zoro because they find out who he is, and he pretty much outclassed them, as even with the 3-on-1. And then we've come to find out that those pirates were tricked by Nami, I believe. And we find out that in this point, because we don't know who she is at the moment, from what we've seen thus far, we've seen that Nami is someone who is trying to steal as much as she can to kind of make it. So we've seen that, she tries to, like she pretends that she's hurt, steals the ship, leaves them for dead, and takes all their treasure. And leading on to it, this is when we get to the part where Nami steals, the treasure map from Buggy. And Luffy falls down, and he deals with some of Buggy's other crews as well. And then during this part, it's gonna get crazy from here. And I was gonna mention too, what did you think currently of the Buggy arc?
Well, I really like that arc only because Buggy has become over time like one of the most hyped up characters. Partly for me, but partly because he is like a really funny character. But the one thing I really like about that arc is the dog. I can't remember his name, but the story with the dog I thought was really cute, and I also thought it tied in nicely to kind of like the theme of pirates and freedom and treasure, because the pet store was that dog's treasure, so he was going to defend it like while he was living. And it kind of tied in with what Nami was saying about pirates, about how pirates are all bad guys, but then you see Luffy stand up for the dog. So I really like that, and that's why I really like this arc.
Yeah, that was definitely a really nice moment. When I was reading that manga and seeing the dog stand up against the tiger, Oh, I don't, it was so weird because I've seen the anime, but for some reason, the manga kind of just, I felt more attached to like each and every character, which I think you've noticed as well when I would post these things on Twitter. It just felt so
Mm-hmm.
powerful to read it instead of just actually watching it.
Yeah.
Um, and we've seen that that Nami and Luffy end up having a talk. She tells them, be careful about Buggy, and then Luffy's like, we need another teammate. And she's like, at first, she's like, oh, I'm not gonna join. But soon after, like you mentioned as well, they slowly begin to bond as the chapters continue. We see that Nami ends up trying to trick Luffy to give him up to Buggy, and she tries to maybe sneak by Buggy's crew and try to take some more treasure from them, which was pretty interesting when we meet her because you don't know if she's trustworthy or not.
Now,
And oh yeah,
what did you? I was gonna say. So you were reading the manga. Did you see the notes and the sketches of the original concept for Buggy's crew?
yeah, I've seen the original concepts for them.
What did you think about the fact that Zoro was almost a member of Buggy's crew?
That was so weird. Oh,
It's so strange to think about, huh?
yeah, cause like by his personality, you wouldn't think he would take orders from someone like Buggy. Um,
No.
my guess was that maybe they defeat all of them, and maybe Zoro would probably surrender and ends up joining Luffy's crew. That would
I
have
don't
been
know. That would have
interesting.
been. It would have been really weird. Yeah, interesting.
Um, so then we cut back to what's happened, and then we see that everything is getting crazy now because Luffy is locked up, and they're trying to say like, oh, well, prove your loyalty to us by killing Luffy. And before anything could happen, we see that Zoro shows up at the last minute to save everyone, but everything is stopped when Zoro cuts Buggy the Clown in half, and we think, oh, that's it. That's pretty much it now. The arc is over. We're going to move on to the next one because he killed him, and come to find out that he can pretty much like disassemble and like reassemble his own body, and as it continues on in the chapters, he ends up eating the fruit, similar to what Luffy did, and how I mentioned earlier that each fruit gives you different abilities. And seeing this, Zoro, he gets attacked, but he picks up the cage that Luffy's in, with the stomach still being, destroyed at this point, but still makes the effort and pushes through the pain to save the both of them. And then we cut to the parts where Buggy's men are fighting, and we get to the part with the dog, like you mentioned as well. And oh, everything is just so sad. And then we see the mayor as well trying to stand up for his own place. And he's like, yeah, I know I don't have a chance, but I'm gonna do it anyway because it's my town. And then we finally cut to the parts where Luffy fights Buggy. And then during this point, we get the flashback of that. He was friends with Shanks at one point, and they end up having their little battle until the part where I believe it gets, it becomes like a bit of a almost a serious battle, and then it gets even more serious when Buggy destroys Luffy's straw hat. Yeah, and then that's when Luffy's like, no, and he starts, beating him up, and Buggy tries to stand up at one point, only for Luffy to, to punch him back on the ground
Yeah,
again.
man. Luffy doesn't mess around.
So it really shows you, how much the hat really means to him. Um, how did you feel between the connection with the with Luffy and the Straw Hat?
I really like it because in my video on that scene with Shanks when he made the promise, I talk about how it's like a symbol of the relationship he has with Shanks, because no matter where they go, and like obviously like that's part of the point of the story is like Luffy trying to meet Shanks again, but the hat is really cool because no matter where they go or however long it takes for Luffy to see Shanks again, he will always have the hat, and in that way they're always connected. So I really like the hat, and I really like that that's his treasure.
Yeah, and then we find out. Well, later on we find out that Nami fixed his hat, but before that we get to the parts of the fight again, and Nami tries to take the treasure, his body's all in pieces until finally they end up defeating him. Not killing him, but he's at least lost this battle between him and Luffy. And with the whole thing being over and everyone, going their separate ways, the town gets saved. The mayor says thank you, and they all, the three of them, Zoro, Luffy, and Nami, all go into the ship for their next adventure. And that was the arc between the first one and to the last one, and that was chapters 1 through 21, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. 1 through 20, 1 through 21.
So I guess overall, what did you think of the whole arc as a whole?
Again, I really like the stuff with the dog. I like the interaction with Nami because it's kind of, besides what happened with Morgan in the Marines, it's kind of like the first look into how people generally see pirates. They have that bias against pirates that they're all out for blood and money and stuff like that. It's when you get to meet Buggy, who is just a cartoon of a character, if there ever was one. And then it's kind of more or less like Luffy's first fight. I mean, it is, like you pointed out, there are some funny parts to it, but I mean, he didn't really fight Morgan. He kind of just like one-punched him, and that was it. But he did like fight Buggy, like it was technically a fight. So it in retrospect, it's not the best arc, but it definitely is not a bad arc.
Yeah. Honestly, I do have to, give thanks to you for introducing me to One Piece. Because if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have read it or even watched it had it not been for you telling me about it and recommending it.
Now, what are you most excited about, like in the near future of reading it, and then in the far future of like the Marineford War and the New World and all the stuff that happens much, much later? What are you most excited to see and learn about?
I really want to see more of the because at first I was walking into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to enjoy the fights way more than anything else. But as I keep reading it, at least as of right now, it seems like there's less fights and more character development.
It's kind of because it's just really early on, but you get a lot of both. It's just that the fights are now just picking up because One Piece at heart is also a comedy, so you got to let more of the comedy than fights. But One Piece fights are insane, so I have faith that you will love the fights going forward.
I think so. I really do think so. Because it was so weird. Because I watched the anime, but the manga kind of just felt so much more powerful for some reason. Like reading it, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah,
And I
for
can't
sure.
explain it, but because this is coming from someone that doesn't, I don't really read manga. I haven't really been the big manga person. So One Piece has kind of been kind of like one of my first mangas I've really read and really sat through the whole thing and enjoyed it. Um, and I think with everything being over, like you said as well, I'm gonna try to walk into it with some good expectations. Hopefully, I get some more character development from it, and like you said as well, some really good action scenes in the manga as well. And I think with everything being over, I think that's a good way to kind of just finish everything as a good conclusion. I wanna thank you, Oji, for for being on the channel.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited that you're reading One Piece. Thank you for having me on. Before you close the video, I gotta push the agenda. Go read Dr. Stone. Go watch Dr. Stone. If you're cultured, you'll do it.
As well as checking out Oji's channel. He does cover One Piece topics as well as Dr. Stone. So if you're interested in the two of those, as well as some more future content as well to come from him, please do check him out. And with everything being all wrapped up, this has been Diamond Legend and OG, and we'll see you guys next time.